The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome everyone to Google Forms. My name is Trish Connor-Cato. This class is recommended for users who would like to get to know Google Forms in more depth or who are converting to Google Workspace apps from another Office suite such as Microsoft Office. This class will show you how to create, edit, share, send forms, and review responses. We'll start with the basics: signing into Google Apps, using the Apps menu, and accessing forms from Google Drive. You'll then learn how to create a new form, adding questions to a form, and previewing the form. We'll end the first module by creating a new form using a template. In the second module, we'll start working with form questions by modifying and reordering them. We'll insert titles and sections and further explore working with sections. You'll learn how to make a question required as well as showing questions based on answers. In the third module, we'll begin managing form responses. First, we will send a form, fill out a form, and review form responses. We'll move on to linking a form to a spreadsheet and viewing responses in the linked spreadsheet. Module 4 will see us working with form settings. You'll learn how to change general options, presentation options, and how to change default settings. We will then switch our focus in Module 5 to changing form appearance. In this module, you'll learn how to modify the theme and background colors before learning how to change the font and adding a header image. For this course, you can use several different types of Google accounts to be successful. You can use personal, student, or a business account through Google Workspace accounts. Now, there is truly only one module that has one lesson that requires a business account. So if you don't have one, I wouldn't worry about it. And that's the last lesson in this course. And that's being able to create a form from a template. So you would need a business account for that. If you don't have one, no worries. You will see it demonstrated on my screen. And in addition to that, I would recommend having two different accounts. So personal might be best for you. So you have an account that you can create in and then send forms to other accounts that you have control over. Personal would be the best way to do that. Our first module is getting started in Google Forms. We'll begin by signing into Google Apps and learning how to use the Google Apps menu. We'll move on to accessing forms from Google Drive. Then we'll create a new form and add questions to the form. You'll learn how to preview a form, and we'll end this module by creating a new form using a template. So the first thing we're going to do is sign into Google. When you're signing into Google from the google.com page, you're signing into all of the Google apps. So it's kind of like a Google Universal sign-in. And we're going to do that by using the blue sign in button in the upper right-hand corner. Now, I'm going to be using two different accounts during this course, and I'm going to sign into both of them so that I can toggle back and forth at any time. Once you click sign in, you'll be able to put in your email or phone number, and I will give my disclaimer at this time. The emails that I'm using during this course are only for this course, and I will not be replying to any emails that may be sent to the email address. So once I put in my email, I'm going to click the next button, and it's going to prompt me for my password. And you have the ability to show the password, so you make sure you're typing it correctly. Once you have that in, you're going to go ahead and select Next. So now if you look in the upper right where the sign-in button used to be, you have a letter representing your name. If you have a photo of yourself in your Google account, the photo would be showing there. Now, I'm going to log into another account. I'm going to click on my letter, the letter T in the upper right corner, and then it lets me add another account. So when I click on that, it gives me the sign-in screen, and I'm going to put in another business email address. That again is just for this course, and I will not reply to any emails sent to either of these email addresses. I'm going to choose next, and I'll go ahead and put in the password for this second account and choose next. So now it changes my letter, but both of those accounts are signed into. So if I click on the letter A in my case in the upper right-hand corner, I'm already signed into the other one and I can switch to that one. So the other thing I'm going to do just for viewing is I'm going to make sure that my address bar and everything is not showing so I get more screen space. And I'm back on my, what I will call my primary account, is the one that's represented by the letter T. There are quite a few ways that you can access forms. The most direct way is by using the Google Apps menu. And the Google Apps menu is that series of dots in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm pointing to it on my screen. It's to the left of your letter or your picture for your account information. And so when you click on that, you'll see all of the Google apps that you have access to, and Forms is one of them. Go ahead and click on Forms. And that is the most direct way of getting into Forms, by using the Google Apps menu. So let's say you're working in Google Drive and you want to create a form. Let's go back to our Apps menu and go into Google Drive. And Google Drive is used to store files and folders and things of that nature. It's not just for Google apps. You can upload Microsoft Office files, PDFs, all types of files to Google Drive. And so if you're in a personal account, Google account, you won't have priority on the left side. I have this because I'm in a business account. It has nothing to do with what we're doing with Google Forms. So you'll be sitting in your My Drive where you can see your folders and files or upload them here. But the point of this is how to access a form. If you're working in Google Drive, you don't have to go back to the Apps menu to work on a form. On the left side, which is known as the menu, go ahead and click the New button. And then you'll see on the list, there's Google Forms. And if you click on the arrow to the right of it, you can start a blank form, a blank quiz, or a form from a template. And we're going to choose blank form. So it takes you back into Google Forms and it's set up for you to create a form, which we're going to do next. So with our untitled form, if you notice at the top in the upper left, it says untitled form. You can go back to the Forms home page from here using that purple icon to the left of Untitled Form. Over on the right, you have a couple of icons and we'll review them as we go. You have the ability to send a form. You have a more ellipsis where you can make a copy, do other things with a form. You have your account information on the right. Underneath that, you are on the Questions tab. There's also a Responses and Settings tab, which you'll learn about during this course. So underneath that, you have Untitled Form and Form Description. We're going to click where it says Untitled Form. And I'm going to do Control A to select the text Untitled Form. And we're going to name it Google Workspace Survey. And for a form description, we're going to put potential training leads. And then a dash, Google Apps. So we're giving the form a title and a description. And notice you have the ability to change the font, to insert a link, to do a numbered or bulleted list there, and to remove any formatting underneath it. When you create a new form, it gives you where you can put the title and the description, and it also gives you an untitled question. Let's click on that untitled question. So where it says untitled question, you're going to type Gmail. And over to the right, you'll see that it switched it from radio buttons, right? Option 1 was there. It switched it to short answer. We're going to do the drop down on short answer, and we're going to choose linear scale. And it defaults underneath where we type Gmail, it defaults 1 to 5. And you get the opportunity to give the labels, the 1 and the 5 labels, right? So I'm going to click where it says label optional next to the 1. And I'm going to type don't use. For the number 5 label, I'm going to type use daily. So this question doesn't make much sense right now. I mean, it just says Gmail 1 to 5. In module 2, we're going to make it make more sense by explaining what these choices are. But in the meantime, we're going to create more choices based on the Google Apps. So what we're going to do at the bottom, you'll see the duplicate, the 2 pieces of paper. Let's go ahead and duplicate Gmail, right? And so above our duplicate now, you'll see what it looks like. Gmail, and then it has 1 that says don't use, 5 use daily. On the duplicate, we're going to double click on Gmail, and we're going to type Sheets. We're going to duplicate Sheets and change it from Sheets to Docs. We're going to duplicate Docs and change it from Docs to Slides. And then I'm going to have you duplicate Slides on your own and change it to Forms. We have 2 more that we want here, Calendar and Contacts. So go ahead and create duplicates so you can change one to Calendar and the other to Contacts. So in the next module, we're going to add a section that will give more information about these Google app choices we just listed with a linear scale. And you see how duplicate can be handy, so you don't have to label all the time. You're getting the same 1 to 5 linear scale with the labels already on there. At any point along the way of form creation, you can preview your form to see what it's going to look like. And to do that, we're going to use one of the icons on the upper right. And the one that we're going to use is the eyeball. If you hover over it, it says preview. Go ahead and select that. So this is showing what your form looks like currently. And so if you were to send it out, this is what the recipient would see. And at the bottom, it has the submit and the clear form button. But you can preview at any time. When you preview a form, it opens a new tab in your browser. So this is my preview tab, and I'm going to close it. There's the form that we were building. I have my Drive tab open still. And since we went into Google Forms itself earlier, that is also open. I'm going to go ahead and close the Google Forms tab and leave my untitled form and my Drive tabs open. Now, we're going to switch away from this form. It's still in progress. In the next module, we'll come back to it and finish designing it and adding more questions and so on and so forth. But we're going to move to a different topic right now, which is creating a new form using a template. Before we do so, in the upper left where it says Untitled Form, just click there and you'll see that it takes the title that you put on the form, Google Workspace Survey. Until you click in there, it doesn't typically update. You have to click in there to get the updated title. And you'll notice to the right, it says all changes are saved in Drive. So the work that we've done is not lost. We're going to click on the Forms Home icon to the left of Google Workspace Survey. And that will take us to our Forms homepage. So you can see here under Recent Forms, we have our Google Workspace Survey. And now we're going to create a form using a template. So if you notice up here, start a new form, you have your blank form, which we did from Drive, right? Time off requests, event feedback. There's a template gallery over here where you can open the templates. Or, well, these are if you have any in from your organization. And then general tab, if you're in a regular account, you would have the general tab as well, or you should. And then it has, you know, the forms, the templates that are built in. So I'm going to just use the back arrow to the left of template gallery at the top to get back to the home page. And I'm going to select the time off request template by clicking on it. So this is a pre-built form template that can be modified. And so we're on the questions tab. And it gives it a title of time off request. It has a description. Please submit the times you need to take off work and the type of leave you are taking. So it wants the person's name, and the type of answer is a short answer text. It's asking for the leave dates. Short answer text, so like January 15th through January 20th, something like that. It wants to know if you need AM, PM, or all day. It has two type of leaves. One is a description and it's optional, and the other one gives the choices. It almost looks like Latin text as a placeholder there. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of this optional, the first type of leave. So I'm going to select that question, and then to its right, you see you have your duplicate, you have your delete. We're going to choose the trash can to delete that question. Lets you know in the bottom left that the item was deleted, and you can undo it from there. Or up on these icons, you also have undo and redo icons. So we got rid of a question that we don't want on our time off request. We're going to leave the second type of leave, but what we want to do is get rid of what looks to be Latin text and just say description. I'm going to get rid of the Latin text, and I'm going to change description if needed to choose the type of leave you are requesting. And so you can take a template and you can modify it to suit your needs. So that's type of leave. I'm going to continue to scroll down. We have reason for leave, and it's a long answer, text answer. Well, we want to modify that somewhat. We want to put some limits on it in terms of how many characters their answer can be. So when I select that question, in its bottom right corner, I'm going to go to the ellipsis options button, and I'm going to choose response validation. And so I'm going to leave it on length, right? And the maximum, I'm going to change it from minimum character count by using the drop down to maximum character count. And then I'm going to put in 300. And then to the right of that, I can put in custom error text. So if somebody tries to put in more than 300 characters as their response, they will see the custom error text. And so the custom error text is going to be, please limit your response to 300 characters. And just to be even clearer, what I like to do when I do a validation response, I like to kind of give them a tip off in the question. So the question is reason for leave, and I'm going to click after leave, and in parentheses, limit 300 characters. And by the way, response validation is only available for short answer, long answer, and checkbox answer types. Long answer, also known as paragraph. So short answer, paragraph, and checkboxes are the only 3 answer types that allow you to have response validation. And let's go ahead and preview our time off requests form based on the template with our modifications. And so you'll notice that because we used a template, and you'll learn how to do this a little bit later in the course, because we used a template, some of these questions are coming up as required. So the ones that have the red asterisk to the right of them are required. So the only one that's not required is the reason for leave at the bottom. And now that I'm done previewing the form, I'm going to close the preview tab in my browser. And from the form itself, the time off request form, I'm going to just go back to the form's home page at this time. By way of recap, in our first module, Getting Started, we began by signing into Google Apps. You learned that you can sign into multiple Google accounts and be able to switch back and forth between them. You learned how to access forms by using the Google Apps menu, and then we access forms from Google Drive. We created a new form. We added questions to the form. We previewed the form, and we ended this module by creating a new form using a template. In Module 2, we'll be working with form questions over 6 lessons. We'll get started by modifying questions and then reordering them. You'll learn how to insert titles and sections and how to work with sections. We'll move on to showing questions based on answers and end with making a question required. So before we go back to our original form, our Google Workspace survey form, I just want to point out something else from the Forms homepage. To the left of Forms, you have these 3 lines. If you hover over it, it's Main Menu. And if you click on that, you can see that you can get to Docs, Sheets, Slides, Forms, Settings, Help and Feedback, and Drive from that menu. I'm going to just click anywhere and it collapses the menu. I'm going to click on our Google Workspace survey form, and I might change the order of the lessons in this module a little bit. So far, we have the title and description, and we have a separate question for the apps that we listed. So we want to make it a little bit more clear as to what these questions are pertaining to. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and insert a title. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the top question is selected. And you'll notice there's been this toolbar that even if you scroll down through the questions, it tends to stay on your screen on the right-hand side. From that toolbar, you can add a question. You can import questions, which we'll get to do later. You can add a title and a description, add an image, you can add a video, and you can add a section. We're going to click on Add Title and Description, the 2 T's. And so we get this untitled title block, and in its upper center, you'll see a series of dots. When you put your mouse over those dots, it gives you the ability to move that title to a different position. And so I'm going to click and hold on the dots where I have the 4-headed arrow, and I'm going to drag it up so it's above the Gmail question. Where it says untitled title, I'm going to do a Control-A just to select that text. And I'm going to just type primary apps and a colon. And then it's going to be, please rate these apps by how often you use them. And in parentheses, I'm going to type the number 1 equals don't use. I'm going to do a semicolon. 5 equals use daily, and close the parentheses, type a period. And now I'm going to do a Control-A to select all the text, and I'm going to make it bold. Now the description is optional and we don't want to use it, so I'm going to go over to the ellipsis to see more options and click on description so it doesn't show. And then I click away from that, and now it makes the Gmail, Sheets, Docs, and other apps make more sense instead of just being listed with their linear scales. When it comes to modifying questions, it's just an edit. So that title that we just added, we're going to modify that. Get rid of primary apps and the colon at the beginning. And then we're going to change it to say, please rate these primary Google apps by how often you use them, with the 1 equal don't use and 5 equal use daily in parentheses. So quick and easy to modify a question. If you have a need to reorder questions, you can drag and drop them to a different position. Notice if you hover over any of the questions, it has those 6 dots in its upper center. And so what we want to do is we want Gmail, and then after Gmail, we want forms. So I'm going to go down to the forms question, click and hold, and start dragging it up. I went too far, so it's underneath the Gmail question. And then we would like docs under forms. So go ahead and make that change. So you should have Gmail, Forms, Docs, then Sheet, Slide, Calendar, and Contacts. Now we're going to create another section for this form. So let's select our last question, the Contacts one, and then we're going to use that toolbar on the right, and the bottom choice is to add a section. So you'll notice after Contacts, it now says, after section 1, continue to next section. There's a drop-down arrow to the right of that, so it defaults to going to the next section. You could change it to go to section 1, go to section 2, or to submit the form. So it would have submit the form after they complete section 1. We're going to leave it on its default choice. And then you have a new section, section 2 of 2 at the bottom, and it is currently untitled. And we're going to call it, so that untitled section, we're going to call it Additional Google Apps. And for this one, for the description, we're going to hide it. And notice it's not letting me hide the description here. It lets you hide the description on a title, but not on a section. So that's fine. And now to the right, we're going to use the toolbar again, and we're going to add a question using the plus sign. And the question is going to be, select any additional Google apps you currently use. And so it's defaulting to checkboxes, which we want. We want them to be able to select more than one thing. So we're going to click where it says option 1. And this is going to be chat. And then right underneath that, you're going to click where it says add option. And our second one is going to be spaces. Our third one is going to be meet. Our fourth one is going to be keep. The fifth one, tasks. And last but not least, drive. And I'm going to just go back up to the second section, select additional Google apps, and make that bold. Now let's go back to the top of our Google Workspace survey form, and you're going to learn how to show questions based on answers. Let's make sure that our title is selected, the Please Rate These Primary Google Apps title. And over on our toolbar to the right, we're going to add a question, and then we're going to drag the title underneath the new question and above Gmail. So our new question is going to be, do you use Google Workspace apps? Question mark. Instead of having a multiple choice answer, we're going to change the answer type to drop down. And the first option is going to be yes. And the second option is going to be no. And when I did my down arrow to go down to the second option, it automatically populated with no. So we have a yes and a no on the drop down. So now we are going to go to the ellipsis down on the bottom right of that question. And we're going to choose go to section based on answer. So now to the right of yes, it says continue to next section, which if you look at the drop down, right, it would be the Google Workspace survey section. And we're going to leave that for the yes answer. For the no answer, we're going to do the drop down next to continue to next section. And we're going to choose submit form. So if they don't use any Google Workspace apps, they can just submit the form. They're not going to answer the other questions. Now, the other thing we're going to do with that new question we added is we're going to make it required. So in the lower right corner, you can just toggle required so that it's on. And that's the only required question on this form. So let's take a look at it in preview. And you can see your, do you use Google Workspace apps, right? Yes. And then no, you can see that on the drop down. It doesn't mimic the behavior of the actual form, but you get to see those choices, and that it has the asterisk for required. To recap Module 2, working with form questions, I changed the order of the lessons around a little bit, but essentially, you learned how to modify questions, how to reorder questions. We inserted a title and sections. You learned how to work with sections, how to show questions based on answers, and how to make a question required. In Module 3, we'll begin managing form responses. We have 5 lessons in this module. We'll start by sending a form, and then we'll get the opportunity to fill out a form. We'll review form responses, link a form to a spreadsheet, and then we'll be able to view responses in a linked spreadsheet. I'm back in my form, not the preview, and now we're ready to send this form. So I'm going to go ahead and click the send button in the upper right corner. When you go to send a form, it defaults to sending via email. You also have the opportunity to send a link or to get a link to embed into an HTML window. You can share the form on Facebook or via Twitter. I'm going to go back to mail. Now, because I'm in my business account, I have the ability to automatically collect respondents' email addresses from within my company. I'm not going to check that because I already know the email addresses. And I'm going to go ahead and email this form to the other business account that I'm logged into already. The subject is always going to be the name of the form. It gives you a message, which you can change. I'm going to leave the default message. I've invited you to fill out a form. You can include the form in an email if you want to. And we'll discuss what Add Editor does a little bit later in the course. I'm going to just go ahead and click on Send. Once I send the form, I am back on the form, still in my T account. But if I look over at my browser tabs, I have another Google Workspace survey tab. And when I switch over to that tab, that is for my other account, the account that I sent the form to. So there's an email in that account, but also if that user goes to forms, they'll be able to see the form that I sent to them. And this is what this is. So on this account, I'm going to go ahead and fill out the form. So I'm going to say yes to the first one. And you should be doing the same. Give them different ratings based on how often you use the apps. And you can switch it up. And once you get to the bottom and you choose next, it's going to take you to the next section of the form, which is our additional Google Apps section. And so I can select as many of these other apps that I use. I actually use all of them, but yeah, I'll just select all of them. And then I'm going to submit the form. Now, if you made a mistake at any point, you can clear the form and go back to fix your mistakes. And I'm going to go ahead and submit. It tells me that my response has been recorded, and it gives me the ability to submit another response. I'm going to leave this browser tab app open, and I'm going to go back to my other forms browser tab where I'm logged in as T, the person who created the form. And you'll notice that I have a number 1 at the top right next to the responses tab. So you go to the Responses tab to view your form responses. And so it's letting me know I have one response, and it's going through and giving me on the Summary tab there, it's showing me the questions and the responses that I got for each question, right? So I can review those like that. And then, in addition to the Summary tab, you have a Question tab where it's showing the questions in the order that they pop up, right? So the previous question, do you use Google Workspace apps? And I can go through to the next question. And then it has individual, where if I have multiple people, notice here it says 1 of 1. I only have one response right now. But if I had multiple people responding, I can choose to see whose responses I want to view. And notice you can print these out, and you can also delete the responses. I'm going to go back to, I'll go back to the Questions tab. And I'm going to go back to my Other User Browser tab. And I'm going to submit another response and kind of change up my answers. And I'd like you to do the same. So I've completed the survey again. I'm going to switch back to my Primary tab here. Now it tells me I have 2 responses, right? And so I'm looking at response 1 of 2, the summary now. So the first person that responded. If I do the arrow to the right of 2, then I'm looking at the second person's responses. I can do it on a question by question basis, right? So you see for Gmail, I have 2 responses. Down here, I can go to the next question and see them one at a time. For forms, there's my 2 responses. And then individual, I'm looking at the second respondent's answers here. And now I'm looking at the first respondent's answers. The other thing you can do is you can link a form to a spreadsheet so you can view its responses that way, as opposed to in Forms on the Responses tab. Now, before we do that, I just want to talk about something else when you're on the Responses tab. Let's say you wanted to have this survey out there for about 3 weeks and then end the survey. After 3 weeks, you can come into the Responses tab and you can toggle the switch next to accepting responses so that if anyone tries to fill out the form, it will no longer be accepting responses after that time. Now, in order to link the form to a spreadsheet, we're going to use this green icon above accepting responses. And so we're going to go ahead and click on that icon, and it gives you the ability to create a new spreadsheet or to select an existing spreadsheet. We're going to leave it on Create a New Spreadsheet. It will automatically give it the name of the form, and then in parentheses, it will say responses. So we're going to go ahead and click Create. So then it opens the spreadsheet for you, and it just added a column before the first question with the timestamp so you know the date and the time that the responses came in. And you can see the responses going across the spreadsheet. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my address bar showing again so I can navigate. And this is in Google Sheets. I'm going to close this spreadsheet. And then let's say at any time I want to open that spreadsheet. I can go back to my drive. And you'll see the Google Workspace survey responses spreadsheet is already in my drive. And I can always select it and open it anytime I want, and it will give me all of the responses. I'm going to close that sheet again and go back to my form. I'm going to show you other form options that you can use. So to the right of View Responses and Sheets, it now says, because we already have it linked to a spreadsheet. To the right of that green icon, let's go to the ellipsis, the vertical ellipsis. So it's already set for you to get email notifications for new responses. You can uncheck that if you'd like. I'm going to skip Select Response Destination for a moment. If I choose Unlink Form here, it will unlink it from the spreadsheet that we attached it to. And then we could attach it to a different spreadsheet. And we could do that even from here by going to Select Response Destination. It tells you where it's currently being sent. But if we unlinked it and we came here, it would be the same as when we click the green icon to create a new one or select an existing one. I'm going to go back to the menu. I can download all the responses as a CSV. I can also print all responses and then delete all responses from this menu. In Module 3, you learned how to manage form responses. We started by sending a form. You learned how to fill out a form. And then you learned how to review form responses in Forms on the Response tab before we linked a form to a spreadsheet that automatically opened in Sheets. When we closed it, we then went into My Drive to open that linked spreadsheet to view the responses. We ended by going over other response options that you have. Module 4 will see us working with form settings. We have 3 lessons in this module. We'll start by learning how to change general options, and then you'll learn how to change presentation options, and we'll end by learning how to change default settings. We're going to move from the Responses tab to the Settings tab so we can start going through these settings. So your general settings are under Settings. You can make a form into a quiz, which we will review how to do in Module 6. So we'll come back here in Module 6. Then you have one that manages how responses are collected and protected, and we can do the drop down there. So by default, the form is not collecting email addresses. If you'd like it to collect email addresses, you can turn that on. And because I'm in a business account, when I had the option to collect email addresses from within my organization. So that's just a toggle on or off if you'd like your form to collect email addresses. You can send the responders a copy of their response by turning that on if you'd like. You can allow response editing if you want. So after they submit, they can change a response. They can edit a response and change it. And then there's a section called Requires Sign-In, and currently is restricted to users in my company, that they will have to be required to sign into Google. Otherwise, there's no requirement for signing in. I'm restricting it to users in my company, but if I'm not restricting it to users in my company, it's not going to require a sign-in. And then I can choose to limit to one response. So we completed the survey twice because it's not limited to one response. And that might be something that I use for a quiz versus a survey. It just depends on the situation. For training purposes, it's obviously easier for me to leave that untoggled so that I can respond multiple times to the survey during this course. The next section goes over your presentation settings here. And so your presentation options. So manage how the form and responses are presented. And I can do the drop down there. Let's toggle on Show Progress Bar. As the user is filling out the form, it will show them their progress so they know how many more questions or how much they have left to do. You can choose to have the questions shuffled, so every respondent will get a different order of questions. That could be useful for a quiz. I'm not going to toggle that on here. Then you have an after submission. You can get a confirmation message, and the default message is your response has been recorded, which we saw. If you wanted to edit that message, there is an edit button on the right side of it. And then if you're showing a link to submit another response, that's how we were able to do that. Now, under our default settings, you can watch me do this on my screen. I'll show to get both of them on the same. If I toggle limit to one response on, it disables the show link to submit another response automatically. So I'm going to leave that off because for training purposes, like I stated, it might be good to have that on. And then you have the opportunity to share the results summary with respondents. There's an important details link there. And when I click it, it opens up another like help style page, right? So the response summaries will show the full text responses or charts for each question and are visible to anyone who can respond to the form. I don't know if you want everyone to see everyone else's results, including their own. But if you do, you would want to toggle that setting to on. And then under restrictions, so as a respondent is filling out your form, it's automatically saving it along the way. And if you want to, you can disable autosave for all respondents if you have a need to do that. And the last section under settings is your default settings. So you have form defaults, and the settings would be applied to this form and any new forms. And then you have question defaults would be applied to all new questions. So let's do the drop down next to form defaults. And so here is where you can collect email addresses by default. So it would apply to this form and new forms. So every new form you do, you don't have to worry about that setting because it will collect the emails by default. And then your question defaults, I'm going to expand. This would apply to all new questions. If you want to make all new questions required by default, then you would toggle this switch. I am not going to toggle it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up to my T account and switch to my A account. And when I do that, it opens up the form for me as a respondent. So I just want to show you some of the changes we made. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes to the first question. And if I scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll see the progress bar that we chose to turn on. So it's capturing the progress there. I'm going to go ahead and just fill out the rest of this. I'm going to use just various responses. And then I'm going to go next at the bottom and choose a couple of these responses. And then I'm going to submit. So we allowed each respondent to have multiple responses, and that's why they have the ability to submit another response. You may not want to do that in real life, but for training, it's very helpful. And I'm going to switch back to my T account now. I have my third response. I'm going to go to the Google Forms homepage at this point. And from the main menu on the left, I'm going to navigate to Drive. And let me go to my drive here. And here's it's under suggested, but it's also in my file section. I'm going to go to my sheet with the responses in it and let that open in Sheets. And you'll see that it has the third response in there. So it's not like you have to be sitting in Forms every day waiting for responses to come in. You can just open the sheet when you have time to look at it. And I'm going to go ahead and get out of Sheets. In this module, we worked with form settings. We went through the general options. We visited the presentation options, and we looked at the default setting options. So we changed a few options. We resubmitted a form so that we could see those options. And then we reopened the spreadsheet that's capturing the responses to see that the new response is in the spreadsheet. In the fifth module, we'll focus on changing form appearance. We have 3 lessons in this module as well. We'll start by modifying the theme and background colors, move on to changing the font, and then we'll be adding a header image. And for this one, we have a file in the video description named Learnit Logo. You'll want to grab all of the files from the video description and put them in a directory on your computer. And now I'm back on my Forms homepage, and I'm going to reopen our Workspace survey form. And so now we're going to get to make the form more user-friendly by changing its appearance. We're going to start by modifying the theme and the background colors. So this is when we use this palette icon up on the top where it says Customize Theme. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And so under Theme, you have the text style for the header, the question, and the text. You can choose a header image, which we're going to do a little bit later in this module. And you can change your theme color and background color here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a different font, but I want the same font for the header, the question, and the text. And so I'm going to do the drop down next to Roboto, and I'm going to go with Montserrat. And actually, I'm going to do the drop down and choose, I'm going to hover over Montserrat and choose, pops up on my left. And I'm going to choose bold for that. And then for the question, I'm going to change it to Montserrat, just plain Montserrat for every question. And then for any text that's like in the answers, that's also going to be Montserrat. Answers, descriptions, that kind of thing. So I like consistency with the font. It's just my personal choice, but you can choose what text types, what font types you want for header, question, and text separately. I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to choose an orange color for my theme, and then the background, I'm going to make it a different orange color, right? So the orange is showing like on my sections and stuff like that, and the other color is showing in the background, just to give it a little bit more visual appeal. So now I am going to close this theme panel on the right by using its X in the upper right hand corner. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use that Learnit logo that we brought in from the files from the video description to add a header image. So you'll see what's going to happen when we're going to do that. We can go back to the palette to bring up that theme panel on the right again. And underneath header, we're going to click on Choose Image. And so they give you some theme images here that you can use. you can upload images and you can also use photos. So if I go to upload, it lets me know that I can browse or drag a file here, and we're going to end up doing that with the Learnit logo. If I go to photos, it says no photos were found in your account. If I had photos in my Drive account, they would show up here. Let's go back to upload, and I'm going to just choose browse and navigate to wherever you put that Learnit logo. And I'm going to just double click it, and it will upload it, and I'm going to choose done at the bottom. I'm going to close the theme panel for a moment. And so the Learnit logo is coming in kind of blurry. Notice it changed the color scheme from what I chose for my orange and lighter orange colors for the theme in the background. It changed that so it matches more of the colors in that Learnit logo. Well, I decide that that doesn't look good in here. So up on the top, I'm going to use my undo button. It gives me back my colors. And if I undo again, it will get rid of the logo. So we're going to go back into our palette to customize the theme. We're going to click on choose image again. And you can pick any image here, and they have them categorized. There's work in school, there's illustrations, birthdays, all kinds of different categories. I'm going to leave it on work in school, and I'm just going to choose something that's interesting for me. And once you select something at the bottom, click the blue insert button, and it will insert that image that you selected. Now, it changed my color scheme again. It's always going to do that. So the moral to the story is, if you're going to use a header image, you might want to do the image before you change your theme and background colors. You can still adjust them if you like, but I'm happy with the coloration it gave it to match the image I selected. So that's how you go about adding a header image to a form. In Module 5, we focused on changing form appearance to make it more visually appealing and user-friendly. We started by modifying the theme and background colors and changing the font type. And then we added a header image. We used the Learnit logo. You learned how to undo that. And then we added one of their built-in illustration images. And we saw how when you add an image, it will change the theme and background colors that you selected. So I suggested that you add an image first before doing your theme and background colors. I'd like to thank everyone for viewing this Google Forms video course. Again, my name is Trish Connor Cato. To recap what was covered in this course, the first module was entitled Getting Started. You learned how to sign in to Google Apps and how to use the Google Apps menu to access Google Forms. We then accessed Google Drive, and you learned how to create a form from within Google Drive. We created our Workspace survey form, and we spent time adding questions to the form, and you learned how to preview a form. Then we abandoned that form for a while and created a new form using a template, and we modified some of the questions on the template, and that's where you learned how to use response validation to limit a paragraph to a certain number of maximum characters. In the second module, we began working with form questions. You learned how to modify and reorder questions. We inserted titles, and we inserted and worked with sections. You also learned how to show questions based on answers and how to make a question required. In Module 3, we switched our focus to managing form responses. you learned how to send a form and how to fill out a form as a respondent. And then you learned how to review the form responses and how you could link a form to a spreadsheet so that you could view the responses in a linked spreadsheet, which I think is a really cool feature. In Module 4, we worked with form settings. You learned about the general options, presentation options, and default options. In the 5th module, we began changing form appearance. We modified the theme and background colors, changed the font type, and we added a header image. You learned how to get rid of an image that you add and replace it with another one.